Okay, there you go.
Sometimes 2 or 3 brothers or sisters who grew up together in the same household come to one of our seminars, and it's always revealing and instructive when they begin comparing notes on what they remember from childhood. Several years ago, a man in his mid-30s shared with the group about his memories of a Christmas when he was 10 years old. He told us how his dad had been promising for months to buy him a new bicycle. They had even gone to the bicycle store, looked at all the bikes, and picked one out. His heart was set on it, he told us, and at that point there was nothing that seemed more important in life than that new bicycle. Then a few weeks before Christmas, his dad lost his job. On Christmas morning, there was no new bicycle. He hated his dad, he said, for breaking his promise, and he ended by saying, "It might sound like a little thing now, only a bicycle, but at the time I felt lied to and betrayed. That was the worst Christmas I can remember."
Thank you. So there were great pauses and inflection kind of naturally in there, I think. I don't think I would change a lot or offer that much critique. It seemed very natural. It seemed slow enough to, what is the book called?
Live an Extraordinary Life.
Living an Extraordinary Life. So, yeah, you know the material. That was very nice.
Never promised
Nicely done. I know. I was thinking about that. Oh, I would probably, I don't know what I would do to get that bike and make that happen.
I promised my daughter a car for her birthday.
Oh, no. A car?
The next part of the book is his sister's story about the same Christmas, which she remembers as the best Christmas of their lives.
That's funny. What did she get?
Nothing,
Oh, but it was still great for
Yeah.
another reason.
because
Yes.
they spent time together and all that. And she was in the room.
That's
when he
funny.
told
I love
her
that.
Okay. The title of my book,
It's going to be okay, but not like we thought. Great.
and I hold it about here.
Yeah, a little further away, but that's fine. There you go.
This is the introduction. I had to do it. Capture a snapshot of America during one of its most unfathomable moments since the Great Depression, at the very same time that the world at large was seized with alarm. I studied that snapshot with a magnifying glass. I searched for my reflection in it. I smelled the picture, tasted it, and swallowed it. It swelled my belly, then stained the blood that coursed my veins. And I knew, then I knew, that I and you, dear readers, are the ones who have been blessed with the whole burden. This social memoir, 2 years in the making, promises to be a colorful read. But more than that, it is my intention that this book, a collaboration between myself and my husband Phil, offers up an antidote for society's queasiness, for our uneasiness about what lies ahead. Tall order, I know. But Phil and I have a contribution to make, a message from the front lines of bewilderment. And I'll bet you there are others out there like us who do too. If only America can hear us. If only she can see us. America, we are changed, permanently changed. And now we must walk into it, fully into it, to save ourselves.
Again, I don't have too many comments about that. I mean, I think, as with anyone, if you read it more times, it may become a little bit, loosen up a little. It may become a little more conversational. If we want to talk just briefly about cost, I put an estimate sheet in here. This is a real estimate of the real audiobook that I produced. And as I said, this is only a 2-hour audiobook. So you have to take into account that your book may be much longer. So this was a 98-page book. And it translates to almost exactly 2 hours of audio. So let's just go down this kind of column, or row by row, I should say. So the pre-production, this is if you're going to hire a producer. And then Laura will talk about if you don't hire a producer and how that road is. So if you hire a producer, like me, which is why my name is in there. I actually had a video partner on this, and his name is Chris. So we had to do Christine, Chris, like who's doing what, and break it down. So that's why my name's there. You need somebody to meet with you. I mean, you know, somebody's walking in blind. They don't know you, they don't know the book, they don't know what it's about. So a 2-hour meeting is probably at the bare minimum of just discussing the book. What do you want in the foreword? What do you want on the packaging? Do you want testimonials? Can you give me 5 or 10 people that I can interview who have read the book, and I can get quotes from them and pare those down into some great testimonials for the packaging, for your website? What other text do you need? What music do you want? And then you need, you know, this producer to sit down and say, well, I have all of these cuts. Probably not, you know, immediately, but after I've had a chance to think about the topic of the book, the tone that we are trying to achieve, and bring you some music samples, and we sit down and listen to those and finalize our music selection. So 2 hours is really the bare minimum for something like this. Because I knew this author and I knew the book a little bit already, that's all it took us to do that. So that's pre-production. More pre-production would be the scripting. So I wrote the forward script. That's the audio forward, not the forward that would be in the printed book, but the forward that you heard voiced. Conduct the interviews for the testimonials, write the testimonials and the package text, and then go back to the client for revisions, rewrite it, go back to the client again. A couple of rounds of revisions are usually needed for something like this until everybody says, that's it. That's how I want it to look. So that might be about 5 hours. Production, recording the audio. So I think I mentioned earlier some voiceover artists might charge a few $100 to record that forward, which was maybe 1.5 minutes long. And that's really on the low end, but that might be what you could expect to pay. That's just a flat rate. If you have a professional voiceover artist, it won't take them very much time to do it as you're paying for your studio time. And you want to have somebody who can get in and get out so you can do your part if you're voicing your book. So the production of the audio book, this was my fee to sit next to the audio engineer and listen for flubs, watch the editing on the fly, make sure that things are pronounced correctly, because when you're reading aloud, you almost are in another world. You can't hear yourself. You don't know what you just said 5 seconds ago. So you need that second set of ears, whether it's a producer that you pay a fee or someone that you really trust to say, stop, that doesn't sound right. You got to get it right, because you don't want to go back in and pay another recording session fee. So that was 1 day. We actually did break it into 2, I said half-day sessions. It was a little bit more than that, but 2 sessions. Now, some producers would charge you then 2 days. We just said, well, you know what, we're tired at the end of day 1. Let's come back tomorrow and do it. Flat fee. The editing of the audio took 2 days, with me sitting next to the audio engineer again, editing the foreword, editing the author reading, and editing in the music. And this also included proofing the audio, listening to the whole 2 hours, and me marking down, at this time code, this happened, we need to fix that, there's a little bubble here, bobble here, this is what we need to take out. And then going back and taking that out. And coming from a news background, I'm probably more efficient than most people. Some people, it may take a lot longer to do this. So I really try to work very efficiently. The next part would be the audiobook cover artwork. So then, again, I sat by the graphic designer with my and the author's vision of how we wanted this to look and conveyed that. What color do you want it? Which photo are you going to use? Which text are you going to use? Do you want bullet points or paragraphs? All of these things need to be decided and sort of conveyed. And the graphic artist will do whatever you want and may even come up with some ideas of his or her own. So that took a whole day. And in production, just in case you don't know, a day can be anywhere from, well, I would say about up to 10 hours. If you start getting over a 10-hour day, somebody's probably going to charge you an extra fee. A half day would then be 5 hours, but it's a tricky business because in production, if you're going to do a half day, you want to start early enough so that the producer or whomever you're working with is done at noon so that they can book another half day. They can take a lunch break and book something out until 6 o'clock. Okay? So you can't say, well, let's start at 11:30, Then you're going to pay a whole day rate for somebody because their day is taken up with your 5 hours. Okay, so then just the total for a production fee for a producer would be about $3,000. And then the additional costs below, the cost estimate for the audio recording studio, we ended up putting in 11 hours, and you know they're timing you down to the minute at these places. The guys I worked with were really nice, but we did use 11 hours at $90 an hour. So that was the 9 hours of recording and the 2 hours of post-production and editing. And then they went ahead and burned the data archive and burned the master copies. So that once everything was approved, you walk with your masters. And you want to keep those in a safe place. And the cost estimate for the graphic designer, you might find somebody for about $75 an hour. It took us about 7 hours, which included not only doing the art design, but also the archiving, the burning to disk, the editing. You know, by that I mean, I said, well, I want it to look like this, but it would take a few minutes for the person to move everything around and actually create that vision. And then the cost estimate for duplication or replication. Duplication is if you're doing a short run, and replication is if you're doing a long run. I think some of the places had a breakdown of if you're doing 250 or less, it's duplication, and anything more is replication, and that determines if you're pressing hard copies where they're going to send it. They might do duplication in-house at their site, or if it's replication, they might send it out, and you're going to be paying shipping costs and all this other stuff. So we ended up paying probably a little bit more than $3,000, and I want to tell you an absolute horror story so that you don't do this yourself. So me as the producer, it was my job to proof everything and get the client's approval, right, before we made copies. So we were in the process of doing that on disc 3 at the very end, and we got hung up on some issue, like, well, do you want this or that? And we ended up changing something, and I got the client's approval. I didn't proof it all the way. I didn't proof it all the way to the end. We got hung up like 9/10 of the way through. It went to duplication. It came back. I got it in my hands. I'm all excited. I pop it into my laptop. This is disc 3, which you currently have in your folders. I found an error. And I said, well, you don't want to know what I said, but I said a few choice words. I called the author and I said, my bad. I messed up. You know, we got so hung up on that one issue that I didn't proof the last few things. And I'm eating the cost. So I am now the proud owner of like 750 disc 3s, which is why I gave you all one. So whoever can find that error and email me will win a copy of the book right here. So if you email me, I'll get it to you somehow, whether, you know, I could leave it here at the vault or whatever. Try to go in there, and it's so little. I was agonizing about this. I mean, I knew all along I was going to have to eat the cost. I wanted it to be right. But everybody was saying, let it go. Nobody's ever going to notice that, but I noticed it. So if you can find it, first one to email me, and my card's in there, gets a free book. So yes, and I'm thinking of ways to decorate. I'm going to make some sort of a collage with these things, and it's my reminder, you know, to get the client's approval to get your approval before anything is duplicated. And also taught me a very valuable lesson about money, and that is to treat the client's money as my own. Because in this case, it turned out to be my own. And boy, was I a lot more tight-fisted when I was writing that check than when he was writing the checks.
So the 3,000 was for a run about 750 copies?
I think we ended up, I'm probably exaggerating, we didn't do that many. We may have done a run of 500, but because we used this packaging, which had 6 sides of art, it was very expensive.
Okay, so that drove it up. Okay.
Yes, and you know, you can look online and you can find anywhere from, the cheapest I found I think was 89 cents per unit in a sleeve, not very fancy. These ended up to, you know, cost a lot more than that because there was just so much art and 3 discs instead of 2. It was really an oddball production. So we spent a lot on that, but that's only if you're pressing hard copies. We didn't do digital, and Laura will talk about digital in just a moment. So,
How
I'm sorry?
How much do you sell that?
So the question is, how much are we gonna sell that for? So my client is selling it for $15.61. So he emailed me today because I said, well, what did you decide on for the cost? What is this thing? He said, this is not a great money maker, but it gives him, something to sell after he gives a keynote speech. It gives him more credibility. It's a hard copy product that people can take away from his speech. And there's a lot of perceived value in a 3-disc set. I think that's a pretty darn good price for something like that when you're getting printable material, you're getting a full-length DVD, basically.
I'm sure it helps him negotiate his speaking fee.
Yeah.
Like, okay, how many CDs are you going to buy? I'll knock them down to $10 a piece.
Right, exactly. I'm sure everything
Speakers need that.
can be negotiated, but he really needed that. He said everybody who gives keynote speeches, they have something, and I need the something. So that provided him with what he needed. So I did have a resource guide I didn't have a chance to put in your folders, so I'll hand these out. And, I'll give you one and you can pass them on. This has a couple of, oops, maybe I gave you one extra thing in there. This is in your folder already. So this has a couple phone numbers and websites that you can go to learn more about distribution, maybe a little bit about marketing, maybe a little bit about cost, audible.com. And while you're taking a moment to get those, I'll introduce Laura Faith, who's a friend of mine and also an author. And you've got your book?
Yeah.
Okay. So Laura's going to talk about the other route. Instead of hiring a me, doing it yourself. And is it a cost savings? Is it a time savings? Or not? Okay, would you like to?
All right, I'm from New York, so I'll speak really quickly because I know we're running behind a little bit. I wrote a book called I Found All the Parts, Healing the Soul Through Rock and Roll. It's about my spiritual awakening with a famous rock band. And it's a different kind of book. It's a memoir, but I have a lot of information and research in here about everything from group reincarnation to spiritual, what happens on a spiritual awakening and why going to a rock concert can, trigger all this stuff. So my book, I wanted to do an audiobook because I thought rock music fans would be people who might be interested in this. And as a demographic, they aren't necessarily great or big readers. They like to listen to stuff. So make an audiobook. So I didn't know what to do. My book was coming out at the end of '08, around November of '08, 2 years. In fact, what's today's date?
November
8th. Oh, it's just, it was 11/11/08. So we got the numbers all mixed up, but it was close. So it was 2 years ago, and I approached somebody. I happened to be talking to them, maybe it was September. I said, yeah, I think I really want to do an audiobook. And he said the name of a guy from Coop Studios. I called John McVie from Coop, and he called me right back, and he said, oh my God, I want to do audiobooks. I love audiobooks. I'd love to work with you. So I didn't do any research. I'm going to tell you all the things not to do, because I probably did them. So John and I, like, okay, well, how much does this cost? He's like, well, I'll try and get you a good rate. I think we did about $75 an hour. He was going to try and do some stuff on the weekends, and all right, great. So long story short, I go in, I just strictly read my book. John was my producer. As he listened, he said, I listen to a lot of audiobooks. I kind of have a good feeling for, what sounds right. I'm a musician. And I was like, okay, fine. I don't have to, hire Christine, who I knew. And I thought, should I do that? And I said, well, no, I was a broadcasting major, even though I didn't go into that part. I was a researcher, ended up doing that. So I thought I'd just read the book. So we did that. It took about three days, maybe about 6 hours a day. So I think we took anywhere from 15 to 18 hours to record this. My book is 60,000 words. So we got it down to 60,000 words. And the big issue when you're recording your own book is definitely that you're not a professional. It will take you longer. There will be times when you're reading, and I remember saying to him, oh my God, I wrote that, but I had no idea how difficult it would be to say that sentence. And there were times when I had to literally do something 10 times. Or I would start giggling because it was just so ridiculous as to how I could not say this. And I'm from New York. as a broadcasting major, I did listen to myself over and over again and try and get rid of my regionalism, but it doesn't quite work, especially when you speed up. So John was great at listening and saying, no, you got to do that sentence over again, or going back and realizing that I thought I said it right. I kept the word archetype, I must have in here about 50 times. And I kept saying archetype. He's like, no, it's archetype. So it was, hard for me to remember certain words and how I was saying them. There were some words in here that, because I go into some esoteric stuff, I have no idea how to pronounce the, you recognize the word when you read it. But he would be sitting there on Wikipedia trying to find something with a how to pronounce, the word Thoth, which is an ancient Greek god, and so we're like arguing about how to do that. So there were things that took up time. If I'd had a producer, they probably could have done some of the research ahead of time, things that I just didn't even think of. So overall, I would say doing the book, we came in, he estimated, because he had never done an audiobook before, he estimated somewhere around $1,500. Post-production killed me. It came in probably somewhere between, after I think we were all done, $2,300 to $2,500. What happened was he went back. He did not do it on the fly. He went back and he'd say, okay, let's start that sentence over again. We'd back up, start it over again, and then I'd mess up, and then we'd go back. But what he did was afterwards he went through and listened for all of the vocalized pauses, all the ums and whatever weird noises that I'd make, or my breaths, and he got all of those out. But because the book ended up being about 6 to 7 hours recorded, it took him a lot of time in post-production. So he felt badly. He tried to work with me as best as he could and put in time and extra. He says, I feel badly, I'll put in bumpers. So instead of doing like music, he's a musician, so he would record somebody playing the guitar, probably him, just going, and that would be the beginning of one of my chapters. Just so that somebody, when they're listening to it, there's a break between my voice and the next chapter. So, and the other thing that I have in here is, because I have a lot of research, I have a lot of words in bold. And I don't know if you can see, but these were like words. What I did was on my website, I have a whole glossary of just, there's probably 100 or 200 words, and I wanted people to be able to go back and refer to that, and there's no way to do that on the audiobook. So there were certain elements that I think I lost by doing an audiobook that you definitely don't, this book is probably, I probably wouldn't do it right now as an audiobook, having this experience and knowing, even though I thought rock musicians and fans would want to listen to a book, I also haven't marketed it anywhere nearly as much as I should have. So that's probably one thing. And what was the other thing? Getting it out there. So what I have it is on digital. A company called Nimbit actually hosts the sound for me. And then I have like what's a little shopping cart, and people can download the audiobook in 3 separate parts. The file was so big, and John compressed it so that it was, you can have a really high quality, but it's going to be a huge file. And so he made it into like a medium to lower quality, which still sounds fine, but it ended up, it still was only, he could break it down into 3 separate files. So we couldn't do it into one file. And so people can go to my shopping cart and they can download the first, what I have right now is first 2 parts for free, and they'll pay for the last one. I mean, for me, it's a promotion. My goal is to have people listen to or read the book, and so it's an encouraging thing to do that. There was one other part that I wanted to recommend. Anybody here wanted to get onto audible.com? When I first, I had approached a couple of different companies and asked about getting onto Audible, and they're like, no, you can't unless you're published by a major publisher. At least that's what I was told. So it was challenging, but I ended up getting the name of a woman, and she actually, I think, was a lawyer, and her name is Jessica Kay, and I'm not sure if she's still doing this, but she might know somebody else who is. And what she would do is she would get several people who wanted to have their book on Audible, and then she would kind of put you in as a, I don't know if she did it as a group, but anyway, I was able to get onto Audible through her, and that's just something that you might want to know, and I have her email.
Are you paid by Audible?
Yeah, you get paid by Audible. You get paid very, very.
30%, is that right?
Yeah, I didn't even know what the percentage is. I would get a check for $12 or something. And so, and then Jessica would take her small percentage. But I'll give you her email, the one that I have that was as of, I think, beginning of this year. So if you'd like to contact Jessica, and if, like I said, if she's not doing this, you could definitely ask her if she can help you, or send you to somebody, recommend somebody to get you on. So she's Jessica
And it may be changing, you know, Amazon bought Audible last year.
You know, it just
So,
might.
and they're very pro independent publisher, self-published author.
That's
So
all
I'm
right.
sure that they're gonna be working on a way to get it more
She's at
accessible.
AOL.com. Okay. So, do you guys have any questions? Anything about? Coop was great. They were really nice to work with. I would probably take Christine's advice and work with somebody who definitely does audiobooks and does them pretty regularly, so you can get a better idea of what to do. But I liked working with him. We had a lot of fun. Yeah.
How many copies have you sold so far?
You know, I don't keep track of it. I did not make a hard press copy. It's just digital. So, you know, not a lot. I haven't marketed it. Like I said, it's hard for this. And I didn't, one of my other issues was I did not name the band that I had my awakening with. So I don't really go to their fans and market it. And so maybe 20 to 30 downloads overall. And like I said, I do some of them for a lower price. And some people might be just downloading the first 2 parts and then they don't buy the 3rd part. So I don't really know how many actual copies are sold. But for me, it was just, I wanted a format for people to, whoever was interested in it, to be able to hopefully get access to the information. It wasn't necessarily something that I wanted to make money on. You know, looking back now, I probably would have loved to have done it for a little bit less money than when I did it for.
How many copies of your book have you sold?
Same thing. I mean, I haven't kept track over the last 2 years, but you know, 150 to 200 copies probably. But I haven't gone to conventions. I haven't gone to metaphysical fairs, and there's a lot of places that I need to. I had a lot of things come up after the book was published, so I just wasn't able to focus on marketing as much as I'd like.
Why didn't you name the band?
Because it's a really uncomfortable, awkward thing to say, hey, I had a past life with you, and guess what, you're in my book now. And you know, so I contacted them. I let them know several years before the book was published, and that was my way of also being able to have the reader, when they go through the book, it can be any band. So if you like AC/DC or if you like, you know, bluegrass, it doesn't matter. You can have that same connection of like, wow, I feel really attracted to this music, and why am I attracted to the musicians? And what I try to do is answer that from more of a metaphysical, spiritual perspective and what I was guided to. So I think things are changing now. I just did a radio show for 2 hours on the Paranormal Radio Network on Saturday night, and the guys I was talking to, and I just said, you know what, I don't name the band in the book, but I'm going to talk about them here if you don't care. And he's like, sure. And so I was like, yeah, it's Cheap Trick. And oh, yeah, whatever. So I think now it's fine to mention them. And I think as an author, you know, each of us goes through, well, what feels right. And it just felt like it wouldn't be right to do that to the band at that time. And I think at this point, they don't really care. They know the book's out. They know who I am.
How about the forward?
Yeah, and one of the other things, the forward, a guy named Lon Friend did my forward. He wrote I happened to meet him, and it was just an amazing synchronicity. And so he wrote the forward, and then I said, hey, Lon, he used to be the editor of Rip Magazine, which is a heavy metal magazine, knows everybody in the music industry, lives in LA. And I said, hey, could you read the forward and actually record it? Oh, no problem. So Lon did the forward to the book, and I think it's, you know, it's really fun because he's just this really laid-back guy, and so it's nice to have his voice in the beginning, and especially people who know who he is from that genre. Oh my God, Lon Friend did your book. Oh my God. And I'm like, well, you know, I didn't even know who he was until I met him. I didn't care. But it's nice to be able to have somebody with some notoriety, you know, read the forward if you can. I don't know, that was good for me.
You should bundle the audio with the book. You probably would sell more.
You know, and yeah, I mean, there's probably a lot of other options. And I do hope to be able to use it more in the future and be able to think of ways to work it all together. And things are just changing so rapidly. What I did 2 years ago, the technology and stuff might be even very different right now. And you might even be able to self-record part of, you know, or practice doing your own book. I mean, that's the thing, is you do want to try and practice as much as you can. I had my first chapter down, but then I had 20 more to go. That's when it was like, oh my God, it takes a while. But,
Are you happy how the audiobook turned
you know,
out?
I am. I mean, I'm very happy. I'm not thrilled with my voice. You know, when you hear it, you go, oh my God. But overall, I think John did a great job. It just took way longer than he expected, and he apologized for that. That's why working with somebody who's practiced with that, or at least has done several books, could probably give you a much better estimate as to how much time it's going to take you.
How long
to do
did
it.
he guess, and how long did it take?
You know, I think he guessed 10 hours, and and it was about 10, because I'm trying to think, he came in with 15, well, maybe he thought more 12, but it was the post-production. So I think with reading, it was 15 to 16, and then the post-production came out to be an extra at least 8 hours. And that's where I got killed, with that part. But overall, it's a great experience, and if you're an author and you've got a market that's, when you read your book, I mean, the thing that people like, oh wow, it's nice to hear you, they want to know, because it's such a personal experience. That's, I think, a nice thing when the author can do it. But, if I was rich and famous, I would have Christine read it for me. Or somebody who could do this for hours on end and not, begin to wilt. So, anything else? Okay, thank you.
So next up, briefly, is Mark Wood, an independent rep for Digital Delivery Systems, and he's on your resource sheet with a phone number as well.
So, thanks, Christine. My name is Mark Wood, and I'm here to talk a little bit about how to distribute audiobooks as well as digital versions of your book. And she mentioned to me that most of you have printed versions of your book. Digital Delivery System is a service of CD Technical. CD Technical is a duplicator replicator based in Iowa. They've been in business since 1986 and started the Digital Delivery System kind of in anticipation of the decline of the number of CDs and DVDs that are being produced. I don't know if you know this, but within the CD and DVD industry, all the duplicators are consolidating, replicators are consolidating, and it's becoming, DVDs and CDs are becoming the VHS and beta tapes of our generation. And it's hard for me to even believe we're saying that, in 2010, that CDs and DVDs may be going away, but you're wise to be looking at that possibility. If the industry is looking at it, you as authors should be considering that. And we as consumers are changing the way that we consume data, information, audio and digital, Kindle, iPad, all those different electronic readers are changing the way that we purchase music and books and audio. So what CD Technical started through this digital delivery system is essentially a competitive product to iTunes, Amazon, CD Baby, Reverb Nation, and many of the websites where you can download audio and printed media. So it's essentially a hosted micro website. It's an e-commerce platform for you to have your audio book, your digital book, or your printed book, and your bumper sticker and your T-shirt and your bookmark. So it's all combination of, basically it's the audio distribution, but it also includes the ability to cross-sell additional products. Most of what I'm going to tell you today is available through iTunes and CD Baby, and the services are offered through the larger organizations. However, they charge huge commissions, and they charge flat fees, they charge variable fees on a per order basis. So what the digital delivery system is basically take your audio file, create an account with the digital delivery system, $100 to $200 setup fee for a single product, for a single audio. Provide that raw file to us. We'll encode it for you, and it's encoded in a high quality format so it can be downloaded. Laura had mentioned that one of the issues was the large size of the file to be downloaded. And when you use third-party resources, sometimes the quality is not good. I'm going to give you access to a demo so you can actually see live audios for what's been put out there. But it's essentially take your audio files and we encode them, build a micro website, if you will. So if you have an existing website or if you have artwork from your audio book, we'll build a splash page, essentially a one-page website that's intended to give people the ability to purchase that, to listen to a free download, so you can have portions of your audio book available to just listen to. Through the digital delivery system, you also have the ability to purchase download cards, digital download cards, like this one here. So you could have a 4-color image of your book, audio book, and on the back could be a web address with a serial number, which gives people the ability to go to this micro website, enter your PIN number, and be able to download whatever you want them to download, either the entire book, a chapter of the book. Ooh, sweating. Sorry about that. Or recurring. If you wanted to sell one chapter a month for a period of 6 months and have someone purchase that agreement, you can do that through the digital delivery system. So it's essentially a competitive product to iTunes and Amazon. And it's one where you have controlled costs. You pay a low monthly fee. It's a $30 per month hosted version of a micro website. You can link from your existing website, or you could actually, this could be your website for your audiobook if you don't have one. It's not a full website with an about us and about the author, that type of thing, but it's a simple, down and dirty website where you don't have to deal with merchant accounts, setting up payment gateways, shopping carts, the entire, all that goes on with setting up e-commerce websites. And so what I'd like to do is just hand out a small fact sheet. It's got pricing and basically a comparison with iTunes and Amazon. Please.
And Mark, are you also competing with Audible?
Yes, yes. And in fact, I tried to get pricing on what it would cost to get this on Audible before I came here. Whew, tripping. And I couldn't get an answer. I couldn't get an answer from a live person. I filled out a form, and they sent me an email, said, fill out this form, and then a live person will call you or will email you. But I was unable to get an answer on Audible. But this is, the DDS is hosted through Rackspace. Rackspace is one of the premier hosting platforms in the world. And when your asset is loaded or hosted through DDS, essentially you get superior hosting and high quality speed, download speeds up to 100 megabits per second. With Rackspace hosting, there's nodules throughout the world, so that when the audio is purchased through different parts of the world, they're able to download the audio file quicker once it's been downloaded to one of the nodes. But, excuse me. Essentially, this includes the entire e-commerce system of sending you checks, sending you monthly reports or weekly reports, depending on how many products you're selling. And it basically lets you retain the rights of distributing your product. If you list with CD Baby or some of these other companies, they do restrict how you can sell your digital assets. I know I've been really quick and blazing through this, but
It's appreciated.
this is, and I'm also, I want to speak just briefly about marketing. The digital download cards that I mentioned here are really a really powerful way for you to market chapters of the book. It's like a band handing out, instead of handing out CDs at a concert that they're at, hand out a digital download card, let someone go and hear the song, the audio file, and buy that one song. You could sell an individual chapter of your book through this digital, the DDS system. If one chapter of your book was common and you felt there was a need for it, you could literally sell one chapter of your book. My day job is web marketing and web development, and I do a fair amount of work with startup companies and floundering musicians and authors and helping them develop websites and email marketing, pay-per-click advertising, search engine optimization. So if you have questions about that, about how to market your product, I'd be happy to spend more time with you. This is not the right forum to do that. Are there any questions about DDS, or can I answer any quick questions for you?
Are the cards serialized?
Their serial numbers will be printed on them by CD Technical.
Right.
Yep, so you provide basically the artwork, they produce the cards for you. Their additional fee, anywhere from 50 cents down to 35 cents.
You could sell those and then it's like an iTunes card kind of thing?
You could, and that could be, you could sell that card yourself and, kind of go around, or you could drive them to the website and they could purchase through the website. But you don't know, as an author, you don't have to deal with setting up a merchant account. You don't have to worry about PCI compliant shopping carts and all the things that are coming down. I don't know if you all know this, but if you have your own site and you're selling e-commerce, there are many things changing with e-commerce transactions that are going to preclude mom and pop from selling directly. So DDS is kind of ahead of the curve, trying to provide an alternative for distributing media.
Do you work in terms of distribution with different file structures? In other words, if I were to deliver to you a WAV file or a lossless file, do you then work with me in terms of what optimizes my ability to distribute that
Yes.
in a loss type file structure?
Yes, and I would get one of my technicians on the phone to have that conversation with you. I'm not the person to have that with you, but yes, we do.
And that's a different consideration for an audiobook, I assume, than for musical distribution.
I would think so. Most of the work that I've done has been with audio, with music, so I'm not as familiar with the audio book version of it, but I'm happy to get answers for you. But yes, the company CD Technical has been in this industry for a very long time and is very hip on high quality distribution and making sure that the speeds. If you look at the movies, full movies and videos are available through the system. So I look at it as a way to, it's a competitive cost to CD Baby, Amazon, iTunes. You do have a monthly fee that you're going to absorb, but if you're selling more than 2 or 3 books per month, I think this is a better overall return for you and a better overall control of your product. Wham bam.
All right. Thank you, Mark. So if anyone has any questions, I'm happy to answer them. And if anyone feels more comfortable emailing me, I'm happy to spend time on the phone or meet you somewhere or dialogue via email, either way.
How difficult is it to get an ISBN number? I've heard horror stories. Is it difficult?
How difficult is it to get an ISBN number? I don't have a lot of experience with that,
No, it's
and I do not know the
5 minutes.
answer. I think you just apply.
And most of those services now include a barcode, so.
Great. Okay.
Easy.
Do you have to get a different ISBN number for audiobook than you do
Yes,
for
and for digital books
So
and for hard copy.
the question is, do you need a different ISBN number for the hard copy as opposed to the audio book? And the answer is yes. Okay, I just want to make sure we get
So
that.
all three platforms have a different number,
And a different barcode.
yes.
So just so that you're aware, people that produce the barcodes, there's roughly 30 million barcodes in existence right now. So if you're producing a new product, you have to be very targeted in your marketing because there's a lot of noise in the marketplace.
what do you mean by that?
If you have 30 million products in the marketplace,
I see.
it's a noisy marketplace.
You gotta stand out.
Are there any other questions that I can answer? All right, so in closing, I would like to thank you all for coming. I know this was a late night, and I appreciate your time and your attention. When I teach at CU, it's a required class, and I understand greatly that this was entirely optional, and I am grateful for your time. I have included a lessons learned, revelations from an audiobook producer that you might find helpful, and please feel free to let me know if you have any further questions. Thank you.
Thank you.